My niece slapped me across the face and said, "Mommy says you deserve it because you're a whore." I was grabbing a burger from the grill at my parents' backyard barbecue when my niece Kelly walked up to me and slapped me across the face so hard my ear started ringing. I stumbled backward and grabbed the edge of the picnic table to keep myself from falling. Kelly stood there glaring at me and said, "Mommy says you deserve it because you're a whore." My cousin said, "What the hell?" And my mother dropped her glass of lemonade on the patio and it shattered everywhere. Everyone was staring at Kelly and then at me because a 7-year-old had just called me a whore in front of my entire family and I had no idea why. "Kelly," I said, my voice shaking, "why would you say that to me?" Kelly didn't answer. She just crossed her little arms over her chest and stared at me with an expression that didn't belong on a child's face. My sister Jackie came storming across the yard with her husband Troy right behind her. Jackie had always been the dramatic one growing up, the one who slammed doors and screamed during arguments while I sat quietly and waited for things to blow over. But I'd never seen her face twisted up with this much hatred before. She looked at me the way you look at something rotting in the garbage. "Get away from my daughter," Jackie said, grabbing Kelly and shoving her behind her back. "Jackie, what is happening right now?" I asked. "What did I do?" My father stepped forward and said, "Girls, let's take this inside and talk about it calmly." But Jackie wasn't listening to anyone. She was focused entirely on destroying me. "You know exactly what you did," Jackie screamed. "My birthday party last month. You waited until I was blowing out my candles and then you followed my husband into the kitchen." "That's not true," I said immediately. "Shut up," Jackie yelled. "You pressed yourself against him. You whispered in his ear that you wanted him. You tried to shove your tongue down his throat, and when he pushed you off, you grabbed his belt and told him I would never have to know." I heard my mother say, "Oh my God, Charlotte," behind me. I heard whispers spreading through the crowd of family members who had gathered to watch my life fall apart. "None of that happened," I said. "Jackie, I swear to you, none of that happened." "So my husband is a liar?" Jackie asked. "Is that what you're saying right now? That Troy just made all of this up for fun?" Troy stepped forward and put his hand on Jackie's shoulder. "Babe, don't do this to yourself," he said quietly. "She's not going to admit it." "No," Jackie said, shaking him off. "I want to hear her say it. I want to hear her stand there and call my husband a liar to his face." I looked at Troy standing behind my sister with his jaw clenched and his eyes on the ground. He was shaking his head slowly back and forth. He looked devastated and traumatized. He looked exactly the way a man should look when recounting something that never happened. "Troy is lying," I said, and my voice cracked on the words. "Jackie, I would never do that to you. You're my sister. I've never even thought about Troy that way." "Don't you dare say his name," Jackie screamed. "The texts, Charlotte, the pictures you've been sending him for months, begging him to meet up with you behind my back. When he kept saying no, you cornered him at my party and tried to force yourself on him. He showed me everything." "What texts?" I was crying now because I couldn't help it. "What pictures?" "Jackie, there are no texts. There are no pictures. None of this ever happened. I saw them with my own eyes," Jackie said. "I saw what you wrote to him. I saw what you sent him. So don't stand there and lie to my face." I felt like I was losing my mind. There were no texts. There were no pictures. I had never sent Troy anything in my life. "Jackie, please," I said. "Troy is the one who came on to me that night. He followed me into the kitchen and put his hands on my waist. He said you didn't appreciate him." I shoved him off and told him I would tell you everything, and he grabbed my wrist and said no one would ever believe me. Troy let out this long, exhausted sigh and finally looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "This is exactly what I was afraid of, babe," he said to Jackie in a broken voice. "I told you she would flip everything around. I told you she would try to make me the bad guy. I didn't want to say anything because I knew it would tear your family apart, but I couldn't keep lying to you anymore." Jackie was sobbing now, and my mother was crying too, and I was standing in the middle of all of it watching my entire life collapse. "Mom," I said, turning to find her by the shattered glass. "Mom, please. You know me. You know I would never do something like this." My mother looked at me with so much disappointment in her eyes that I felt it in my chest. "I think you need to leave Charlotte," she said quietly. "Dad," I tried, but he was already walking toward the house with his shoulders hunched. I stood there surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, and not a single one of them would look at me. Troy was looking though, and when Jackie turned to bury her face in his chest, he looked directly at me and smiled. Small and quick and private, just enough to let me know he had won. He hadn't, but I also wasn't going to beg my family to believe me over a man who attacked me first. He only thinks he won because he told his lie before I could tell my truth, but he doesn't realize that I'm going to make a plan to make him expose himself. He's so confident right now, and that confidence is going to be his downfall. By the end of this week, he's going to destroy his own story with his own words. I'll keep you updated. I was grabbing a burger from the grill at my parents' backyard barbecue when my niece Kelly walked up to me and slapped me across the face so hard my ear started ringing. I stumbled backward and grabbed the edge of the picnic table to keep myself from falling. Kelly stood there glaring at me and said, "Mommy says you deserve it because you're a whore." My cousin said, "What the hell?" And my mother dropped her glass of lemonade on the patio and it shattered everywhere. Everyone was staring at Kelly and then at me because a 7-year-old had just called me a whore in front of my entire family, and I had no idea why. "Kelly," I said, my voice shaking. "Why would you say that to me?" Kelly didn't answer. She just crossed her little arms over her chest and stared at me with an expression that didn't belong on a child's face. My sister Jackie came storming across the yard with her husband Troy right behind her. Jackie had always been the dramatic one growing up, the one who slammed doors and screamed during arguments while I sat quietly and waited for things to blow over, but I'd never seen her face twisted up with this much hatred before. She looked at me the way you look at something rotting in the garbage. "Get away from my daughter," Jackie said, grabbing Kelly and shoving her behind her back. "Jackie, what is happening right now?" I asked. "What did I do?" My father stepped forward and said, "Girls, let's take this inside and talk about it calmly." But Jackie wasn't listening to anyone. She was focused entirely on destroying me. "You know exactly what you did," Jackie screamed. "My birthday party last month. You waited until I was blowing out my candles and then you followed my husband into the kitchen." "That's not true," I said immediately. "Shut up," Jackie yelled. "You pressed yourself against him. You whispered in his ear that you wanted him. You tried to shove your tongue down his throat, and when he pushed you off, you grabbed his belt and told him I would never have to know." I heard my mother say, "Oh my God, Charlotte," behind me. I heard whispers spreading through the crowd of family members who had gathered to watch my life fall apart. "None of that happened," I said. "Jackie, I swear to you, none of that happened." "So my husband is a liar?" Jackie asked. "Is that what you're saying right now? That Troy just made all of this up for fun?" Troy stepped forward and put his hand on Jackie's shoulder. "Babe, don't do this to yourself," he said quietly. "She's not going to admit it." "No," Jackie said, shaking him off. "I want to hear her say it. I want to hear her stand there and call my husband a liar to his face." I looked at Troy standing behind my sister with his jaw clenched and his eyes on the ground. He was shaking his head slowly back and forth. He looked devastated and traumatized. He looked exactly the way a man should look when recounting something that never happened. "Troy is lying," I said, and my voice cracked on the words. "Jackie, I would never do that to you. You're my sister. I've never even thought about Troy that way." "Don't you dare say his name," Jackie screamed. "The texts, Charlotte, the pictures you've been sending him for months, begging him to meet up with you behind my back. When he kept saying no, you cornered him at my party and tried to force yourself on him. He showed me everything." "What texts?" I was crying now because I couldn't help it. "What pictures?" "Jackie, there are no texts. There are no pictures. None of this ever happened." "I saw them with my own eyes," Jackie said. "I saw what you wrote to him. I saw what you sent him. So don't stand there and lie to my face." I felt like I was losing my mind. There were no texts. There were no pictures. I had never sent Troy anything in my life. "Jackie, please," I said. "Troy is the one who came on to me that night. He followed me into the kitchen and put his hands on my waist. He said you didn't appreciate him. I shoved him off and told him I would tell you everything, and he grabbed my wrist and said no one would ever believe me." Troy let out this long, exhausted sigh and finally looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "This is exactly what I was afraid of, babe," he said to Jackie in a broken voice. "I told you she would flip everything around. I told you she would try to make me the bad guy. I didn't want to say anything because I knew it would tear your family apart, but I couldn't keep lying to you anymore." Jackie was sobbing now, and my mother was crying too, and I was standing in the middle of all of it watching my entire life collapse. "Mom," I said, turning to find her by the shattered glass. "Mom, please. You know me. You know I would never do something like this." My mother looked at me with so much disappointment in her eyes that I felt it in my chest. "I think you need to leave Charlotte," she said quietly. "Dad," I tried, but he was already walking toward the house with his shoulders hunched. I stood there surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, and not a single one of them would look at me. Troy was looking though, and when Jackie turned to bury her face in his chest, he looked directly at me and smiled. Small and quick and private, just enough to let me know he had won. He hadn't, but I also wasn't going to beg my family to believe me over a man who attacked me first. He only thinks he won because he told his lie before I could tell my truth, but he doesn't realize that I'm going to make a plan to make him expose himself. He's so confident right now, and that confidence is going to be his downfall. By the end of this week, he's going to destroy his own story with his own words. I'll keep you updated. I drove home from that barbecue with my hands shaking so hard I had to pull over twice. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. The thing Jackie was accusing me of, I remember that night so clearly it makes me sick. It was her birthday party. She had rented out the back room of her favorite Italian restaurant and invited everyone she knew. I showed up wearing a green dress I had bought specifically for the occasion because Jackie always said green was my color, and I wanted to look nice for her big night. Troy was the first person to greet me when I walked in. He kissed my cheek and told me I looked beautiful. I said thank you and didn't think anything of it because that's what brothers-in-law do. They compliment their wives' sisters. It doesn't have to mean anything. But then I noticed him staring at me during dinner, not at my face, lower. I kept tugging at the neckline of my dress because his eyes made me feel exposed even though I wasn't showing anything inappropriate. When Jackie got up to use the bathroom, Troy leaned over and whispered, "That dress is doing things to me, Charlotte." I laughed awkwardly and turned to talk to my cousin on my other side. I told myself I had misheard him. I told myself he was just being weird and friendly in that way some men are when they've had too much wine. I told myself a lot of things that night because the alternative was too horrible to consider. After dinner, everyone gathered in the main room for cake. Jackie stood at the head of the table with her eyes closed and her hands clasped together making a wish. I watched her face and thought about how happy she looked. How lucky she was to have found someone who loved her. How maybe someday I would find that too. My head was pounding from the wine, so I slipped into the kitchen to get some water. The room was empty and quiet, and I stood at the sink filling a glass and pressing the cool edge of it against my forehead forehead. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and Troy was standing in the doorway. He wasn't smiling like he usually did. He was looking at me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Hungry. That's the only word for it. He looked hungry. "There you are," he said. "I've been trying to get you alone all night." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. "What are you talking about? Come on, Charlotte." He pushed off the doorframe and started walking toward me. "Don't play dumb with me. I see the way you look at me when you think nobody's watching. I see the way you dress when you know I'm going to be around. That green dress tonight?" He gestured at my body. "That was for me, wasn't it?" I backed up until my lower back hit the edge of the sink. The counter was cold through the thin fabric of my dress, and I remember thinking that this couldn't be happening. This had to be some kind of joke. "Troy, I don't know what you think is going on here, but you need to stop." He didn't stop. He kept walking until he was standing right in front of me, so close I could smell the wine on his breath and see the way his pupils had dilated in the dim kitchen light. Then he put his hands on my waist. His fingers pressed into my hips through my dress, and I froze because my brain couldn't process what was happening fast enough to react. "Jackie doesn't appreciate me," he said, leaning in so close his lips almost touched my ear. "She doesn't look at me the way you do. We could be so good together, Charlotte, just once. She never has to know." I shoved him so hard he stumbled backward and nearly fell. "Get off me," I said, and my voice came out loud enough that I was scared someone might hear, but not loud enough to carry into the main room. "What is wrong with you? Jackie is my sister. I would never do that to her." The charm melted off Troy's face and something ugly took its place. His jaw tightened and his eyes went cold, and for a second I was actually scared of him. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "I was trying to be nice about this. I was giving you an opportunity, but if you want to play it that way, then fine." He straightened his shirt and looked at me with an expression that made my skin crawl. "Just so you know," he continued, "if you tell Jackie about this conversation, I'll tell her you came on to me. I'll tell her you've been texting me for months. I'll tell her you threw yourself at me tonight and I turned you down because I love my wife. And she'll believe me, Charlotte. She'll believe me because I'm her husband, and you're just her jealous single sister who's never been able to keep a man." The air left my lungs. "You're insane," I whispered. "I'm going to tell her everything." I tried to push past him toward the door, but he grabbed my wrist. His fingers wrapped around my arm and squeezed hard enough that I gasped from the pain. "No," he said, and his voice was calm and cold and terrifying. "You're not, because if you do, I will destroy you. I will turn your whole family against you. Your mom, your dad, your cousins, everyone. By the time I'm done, they'll all think you're the whore who tried to break up your sister's marriage. Is that what you want, Charlotte? Is that the hill you want to die on?" I yanked my arm away from him and ran out of that kitchen. My wrist was throbbing, and there were red marks where his fingers had been. I found Jackie in the main room surrounded by family members singing happy birthday, and I almost told her everything right then. I almost grabbed her arm and pulled her aside and showed her the marks on my wrist and begged her to believe me. But Troy had followed me out of the kitchen, and he was standing across the room watching me with this look on his face that said, "I dare you." And I was scared. I was so scared because everything he said made horrible sense. Jackie would believe her husband over her single sister. My parents would believe the devoted son-in-law over the daughter who had never been able to make a relationship work. Everyone would take his side because Troy was charming and successful, and I was just Charlotte. So I hugged my sister and wished her happy birthday, and I went home and I didn't say anything to anyone. I thought if I just stayed away from him, it would be fine. I thought if I just avoided family events for a while, he would forget about the whole thing and move on, and we could all pretend it never happened. But Troy didn't forget. Troy didn't move on. While I was staying quiet, trying to keep the peace, he was telling Jackie lies about texts and pictures that never existed. He was building his case against me one whispered conversation at a time. He was turning himself into the victim, and me into the villain. And by the time I found out what he had been doing behind my back, it was already too late. He had already won. Or at least he thought he had won. Sitting in that grocery store parking lot with tears streaming down my face, I realized what my biggest mistake had been. I gave him time. I gave him a whole month to poison my family against me while I sat in silence, hoping everything would just go away. I had been so focused on avoiding conflict that I handed him the knife he used to stab me in the back. But the thing about people like Troy is they always underestimate the people they hurt. He thought I was broken. He thought I would just disappear. He had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped being afraid. First, I needed to know exactly how deep the damage went. I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered on the fourth ring. Charlotte. Her voice was cold in a way I had never heard before. Not angry exactly. Worse. Disappointed. "I don't think we should be talking right now. Mom, please," I said. "Just let me explain. Everything Jackie said at the barbecue was a lie. Troy made it all up. He's the one who came on to me at the party, and when I rejected him, he threatened to turn everyone against me." Silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the TV playing softly in the background. I imagined her sitting on the couch in the living room where I had learned to walk, where I had opened Christmas presents every year of my childhood, where I had cried on her shoulder when my first boyfriend broke my heart. "Troy showed Jackie the text messages," my mother finally said. Her voice was quiet and heavy. "He showed her the pictures you sent him. I saw them, Charlotte. I saw them with my own eyes." My heart stopped. "What?" "The texts. The pictures. I saw what you wrote to him. I saw what you sent him." Jackie showed me on her phone. I gripped my steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "Mom, there are no texts. There are no pictures. I have never sent Troy Troy anything in my entire life. Whatever he showed Jackie was fake. He made it up. He fabricated evidence because he knew nobody would believe me otherwise. My mother let out a long sigh. Charlotte, honey, I want to believe you. I do. But I saw those messages. The things you wrote were so explicit, so desperate. I didn't even know you were capable of that kind of language. Because I'm not, I said. And I was crying again. Because I didn't write them. Mom, please, you have to listen to me. Troy is lying. He created fake texts to make himself look like the victim. I don't know how he did it, but he did it and you're all falling for it. Why would he do that? My mother asked. Why would Troy go through all that trouble? What would he have to gain from framing you? Because I rejected him, I said. Because he tried to kiss me in the kitchen at Jackie's party, and I shoved him away and told him I was going to tell her. He threatened me, Mom. He grabbed my wrist and squeezed it so hard there were marks. He told me if I said anything, he would destroy me. Another long silence. When my mother spoke again, her voice was tired. I don't know what to believe anymore, Charlotte. I really don't. But I do know that Troy has always been good to your sister. He's always been good to this family. And those messages I saw looked very real. The timestamps, the phone number, everything matched up. Then let me show you my phone, I said desperately. Let me come over right now and show you my actual texts. You can look through everything. You can see that I never sent him anything. Please, Mom. Please just give me a chance to prove it. I heard my mother shift on the couch. I can't do that, she said quietly. Jackie made me promise not to have any contact with you until you admit what you did and apologize. And honestly, Charlotte, after everything I saw, I think she's right. I think you need to take some time to think about what you've done. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like the ground had opened up and swallowed me whole. Troy hadn't just lied. He had created evidence. He had manufactured an entire alternate reality with fake texts and fake pictures, and somehow made them look real enough to fool my mother. I tried calling my father. He didn't answer. I tried texting him, and the message stayed on delivered for hours before he finally responded with, "Give your sister some space." I called my cousin, who had said, "What the hell?" when Kelly slapped me. She sent me straight to voicemail. 3 days went by, and I didn't hear from anyone. I went to work and sat at my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing anything. I went home and made dinner I didn't eat and watched TV I didn't see. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, hoping someone would reach out and say they believed me, but the only notifications I got were spam emails and app updates. On the 4th day, I was leaving my apartment to get groceries because I had run out of everything and I couldn't justify starving myself over this. I was walking to my car when I noticed a familiar vehicle parked across the street, Troy's SUV. He was sitting in the driver's seat watching my building. When he saw me notice him, he smiled and waved like we were old friends running into each other by accident. Then he opened his door and got out and started walking toward me. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to get in my car and lock the doors and drive away. But I was so tired and so angry and so done being afraid of this man that I just stood there on the sidewalk and watched him approach. "Hey, Charlotte," he said, stopping a few feet away from me. His hands were in his pockets and he was smiling that charming smile that had fooled everyone in my family. "How are you holding up? What do you want, Troy?" He tilted his head to the side and looked at me with fake concern. "I just wanted to check in on you. Make sure you're doing okay. I know this whole situation has been really hard, and I feel bad about how everything went down." I stared at him. "You feel bad?" "I do. I never wanted things to get this ugly. I was hoping you would just let it go and we could all move on, but you had to threaten me. You had to make me feel like a criminal for finding you attractive. So what happened after that is kind of on you when you think about it. The audacity of this man. The absolute shamelessness of standing in front of me and blaming me for what he did. Those texts are fake," I said. "Those pictures are fake. You know they're fake because you made them. You fabricated evidence to destroy my life because your ego couldn't handle being rejected." Troy's smile didn't waver. "See, that's the thing, Charlotte. It doesn't really matter what I know. It only matters what everyone else believes. And right now, everyone believes that you're a desperate woman who tried to steal her sister's husband. Your mom believes it. Your dad believes it. Jackie definitely believes it. And nothing you say is going to change that because I was very thorough." He stepped closer and I forced myself not to step back. "You should have just kept quiet," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That night in the kitchen, you should have just kept your mouth shut and none of this would have happened. But you had to threaten me. You had to act like I was some kind of predator for wanting you. So now you get to live with the consequences." He reached out and touched my cheek with one finger. I slapped his hand away so hard the sound echoed off the buildings around us. "Don't touch me." Troy laughed softly. "There's that fire. I always liked that about you, Charlotte. And Jackie just goes along with everything I say, but you actually have some fight in you. It's a shame things had to go this way. We could have been great together." "You're delusional," I said. "I would rather die than let you touch me." "That can be arranged," he said, and his voice was so casual it took me a second to register the threat. "I'm kidding, mostly. But you should know that I told Jackie." I pushed down the rage that surged through me at the thought of Troy playing the victim in his own home. "Please," I said, letting my voice crack again. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need closure. Just this one chance, and then I'll leave you both alone forever if that's what you want. I just need to apologize properly, face to face, so I can start to heal." I heard Jackie sigh. "Let me talk to Troy," she said. "I'll call you back." She hung up and I sat on my couch staring at my phone. 20 minutes later, she called back. "Okay," she said. "Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's parents' house. 6 o'clock. But Charlotte, I swear to God, if you try anything or cause any drama, I will never speak to you again. This is your one chance. Don't waste it. I won't, I promised. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much. I love you. I love you too, she said quietly. That's why this has been so hard. When Sunday came, I spent 2 hours getting ready. I did my makeup carefully, just enough to look put together, but not like I was trying too hard. I curled my hair and let it fall loose around my shoulders the way Troy had complimented once at a family dinner 2 years ago. And I put on a top I knew would get his attention. Low cut, but not too low. Fitted, but not too tight. Just enough to make him look. Just enough to make him wonder if I had worn it for him. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6. My mother opened the door and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Charlotte, she said, I'm glad you decided to do the right thing. Me too, Mom, I said quietly. She stepped aside and let me in, and I walked into the dining room where everyone was already seated. My father at the head of the table looking uncomfortable. Jackie and Troy on one side with Kelly between them. An empty chair across from them that was obviously meant for me. The chair of shame. The chair where the accused would sit and beg for forgiveness. I sat down and kept my eyes on the table. I could feel everyone watching me. I could feel Troy watching me most of all. When I finally looked up, he was staring at my top, not at my face, at my chest. His eyes lingered there for just a second too long before he realized I was looking at him and quickly shifted his gaze to his plate. Good. I had his attention. Dinner was awkward. My mother made small talk about the weather. My father asked me a few questions about work that I answered in short sentences. Jackie barely looked at me. Kelly kept asking why everyone was being so quiet. I apologized 3 times during the meal. I said I was ashamed of myself. I said I was getting professional help. I said I understood if they never trusted me again. The whole time I kept stealing glances at Troy, and every single time I looked at him, he was already looking at me. By the time my mother brought out dessert, he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He was staring at me openly while Jackie talked to my father about Kelly's school. His eyes kept dropping to my top and then back to my face. And each time I caught him, I held his gaze for just a second longer than I should have. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. Just long enough to make him wonder. After dinner, I stood up and said, Jackie, can I talk to you and Troy privately for a minute? I want to apologize to both of you properly away from everyone else. Jackie looked at Troy. He nodded slowly, his eyes still on me. Fine, Jackie said. Let's go to the living room. The 3 of us walked away from the table and I positioned myself so I was standing in front of both of them. Troy, I said, looking directly at him, I am so sorry for the way I behaved. I was confused and lonely and I misread your kindness as something more. That was my mistake, my sickness. You've always been a good husband to my sister and a good father to Kelly, and I never should have put you in that position. I hope someday you can forgive me. Troy stared at me for a long moment. I could see him trying to figure out what was happening, trying to decide if this was real, if I had actually given up, if his plan had actually worked as completely as he thought it had. I appreciate that, Charlotte, he finally said. I know this wasn't easy for you to say, and I want you to know that I forgive you. I just want us all to move forward as a family. He put his arm around Jackie. See, babe, I told you she would come around. She just needed some time to process everything. Jackie nodded and wiped her eyes. Thank you, Charlotte, she said. This means a lot to me. I've missed you so much. I hugged my sister and told her I missed her too. Over her shoulder, I looked at Troy. He was smiling. That same confident smile he had worn at my apartment when he threatened me. That same arrogant certainty that he had won. But this time when our eyes met, I smiled back. Something flickered across his face. Confusion. Interest. A spark of hope that maybe I had finally come to my senses. He thought my smile meant something. He thought my dress meant something. He thought I had finally realized what I was missing when I pushed him away that night in the kitchen. I was going to let him keep thinking that until it destroyed him. The trap was set. I saw the way Troy looked at me during dinner. I saw how his eyes kept finding excuses to drop to my chest. I saw the smile he gave me when Jackie wasn't watching. He still wanted me. Even after everything he had done, he still wanted me. And now he thought maybe I wanted him back. Good. Let him believe that. Let him get so confident that he stopped thinking clearly. Let him get so caught up in the fantasy that he forgot to protect himself. The next family dinner was in 2 weeks. I had 14 days to make Troy so desperate for me that he would say anything to have me. And then I was going to make him say it all in front of his wife. I started texting him the next day. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that could ever be used against me. Just innocent messages about family stuff with a hint of something warmer underneath. Hey Troy, do you have the recipe for that pasta Jackie made last week? I want to try it. What time is Kelly's dance recital? I want to send her flowers. Thanks for being so understanding at dinner. It meant more than you know. He responded to every single message within minutes. At first, his replies were careful. Sure, here's the recipe. Recital is Saturday at 3. Of course, family is everything. But by the middle of the first week, the tone started to change. He added a smiley face to one message, then a winking face to another. By the end of the week, he was texting me first. Been thinking about you today. Hope everything's going okay. You looked really nice on Sunday. Green is definitely your color. Jackie's taking Kelly to her mom's this weekend. Going to be pretty lonely around here. I didn't respond to those messages. I left them on read and watched the little notification that told me he was typing, then not typing, then typing again. He was confused, desperate to figure out where we stood. That desperation was exactly what I needed. The second family dinner arrived and I dressed even more carefully than before. Same strategy. Low cut, but not too low. Fitted, but not too tight. I sat directly across from Troy at the table, and every time Jackie looked away, I caught his eye and held it. Sometimes I smiled. Sometimes I looked down at the table like I was embarrassed. Sometimes I bit my lip and watched his pupils dilate from across the table. He was drowning, and I was the only one who could throw him a rope. He just didn't realize the rope was attached to an anchor. After dinner, my mother asked who wanted to help with dishes. I volunteered immediately, and just like I knew he would. Troy said, "I'll help too, babe. You stay and relax." Jackie looked surprised. "That's sweet of you." Troy and I walked into the kitchen together, and the second we were alone, he was standing too close. I could feel the heat of him behind me while I rinsed a plate. "You've been different lately," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" I kept my eyes on the dishes. "The way you've been texting me. The way you keep looking at me at dinner." He moved closer until I could feel his breath on my neck. "The way you've been dressing." I turned off the water and dried my hands slowly. Then I turned around and leaned against the counter. Troy was right there, inches away, his eyes dark with want. "I've been thinking about that night," I said softly, "in the kitchen at Jackie's party." His breath caught. "Yeah?" "I was scared," I said. "I was so scared of how much I wanted to say yes. So I pushed you away and tried to pretend I didn't feel anything. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, Troy. About what could have happened. About what I missed." He reached out and touched my arm. I forced myself not to flinch. "I knew it," he whispered. "I knew you felt it too." I looked up at him through my lashes. I was wondering if maybe we could find some time to talk, alone, without anyone around. Troy's hand moved from my arm to my waist, the same place he had grabbed me that night. "When?" "Next Sunday," I said. "Same thing. You help with dishes, but this time I'll make sure we have more privacy." His smile was so wide it looked painful. "You're serious right now?" "I'm serious," I said. "I can't stop thinking about you, Troy. I haven't been able to since that night. I was just too scared to admit it." I heard footsteps approaching and stepped away from him just as my mother appeared in the doorway. "How are those dishes coming along?" "Almost done, Mom," I said brightly. Troy was still staring at me like I had just offered him the moon. 1 week. I had 1 week to figure out the final piece of my plan. All I had to do was figure out how to get her close enough to hear it without him knowing she was there. I spent the next 3 days walking through Jackie's house in my mind, remembering every room, every closet, every place someone could hide. And then I remembered the walk-in closet in the master bedroom with the slatted doors that looked directly into the room. If Jackie was standing in that closet, she would be able to see and hear everything happening in the bedroom. And from the outside, the closet would look completely dark and empty. I called Jackie on Wednesday. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice warm and sisterly. "I was wondering if I could come over early on Sunday before the family dinner, help you set up and spend some time together. Just the two of us." "That would be really nice," Jackie said. "I've missed our sister time." "Me too. Oh, and hey, Troy has been so sweet lately. He keeps texting to check in on me. Make sure I'm doing okay. You're really lucky to have him, Jackie." There was a pause, just a beat of silence that told me the seed had been planted. "He texts you?" "Just supportive stuff. Nothing weird. He's just being a good brother-in-law, you know, making sure I'm handling everything okay." "Right," Jackie said, but something in her voice had changed. A tiny crack in the foundation. Good. I wanted her paying attention to her husband's behavior. I wanted her watching him more closely than she ever had before. Sunday arrived and I got to Jackie's house 2 hours before anyone else. Troy's car wasn't in the driveway. "He took Kelly to get ice cream," Jackie explained as she let me in. "Wanted to give us some girl time." We spent the first hour in the kitchen preparing food and I dropped tiny seeds of doubt the whole time. "Troy seems stressed lately. Is everything okay with you guys? He's been texting me a lot. I hope you don't think that's weird. I feel like he's trying really hard to make things right between all of us. It's sweet, actually." Each comment was designed to make Jackie look at her husband just a little bit differently, to make her wonder why he was so invested in my well-being, to plant the smallest seed of suspicion that would bloom when she heard what he really thought of her. After we finished in the kitchen, Jackie said she was going to take a quick shower. "Make yourself at home," she said. "Troy should be back soon." This was my chance. "Actually," I said, "would you mind if I use the bathroom in your bedroom? The one down here is out of soap." "Sure, go ahead." I walked upstairs and into the master bedroom. The closet was exactly where I remembered it. I opened the door and looked inside. Perfect sight lines to the whole room, dark enough to be invisible from the outside. I heard Troy's car in the driveway, heard Kelly's voice yelling, "Mommy, we got sprinkles!" Heard Jackie come down the stairs to greet them, and then I heard Troy ask, "Where's Charlotte?" "Upstairs," Jackie said. I walked out of the bedroom and started down the stairs. Troy was at the bottom looking up at me with hungry eyes. "Hey," he said quietly when I reached him. "Hey." We walked into the kitchen together, and as soon as we were alone, he was in my space. "So tonight," he whispered. "We're still on, right?" "Actually, I was thinking," I said slowly. "Maybe we shouldn't do it here. Too risky. What if someone walks in?" Disappointment flashed across his face. "Then when?" "After dinner. When everyone leaves. Tell Jackie you're tired and want to go lie down. Then text me. I'll tell my parents I forgot something and come back." Troy's eyes widened. "You want to come back here? To my house?" "To your bedroom," I said. "I want to do this right, Troy. I want it to be perfect." He looked like he might actually pass out. "Are you serious?" "I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. I need to know what it would have been like if I hadn't pushed you away. I need to feel what I was missing." He grabbed my hand and squeezed. "I'll text you the second she falls asleep." "Don't wait that long," I said. "Just tell her you need to rest." "I don't think I can wait." The rest of the family arrived and dinner was torture. Every minute minute felt like an hour. I played my part perfectly. The apologetic sister grateful to be welcomed back. The dutiful daughter helping her mother. The doting aunt playing with Kelly in the living room. And the whole time Troy watched me with desperate, hungry eyes, and I watched the clock on the wall counting down the minutes until I could destroy him. When dessert was finished and everyone started leaving, I pulled Jackie aside. Hey, I think I left an earring in your bathroom earlier. Can I run up and check? Sure, Jackie said. Do you want help looking? No, it's fine. I know exactly where I was standing. I went upstairs and walked into her bedroom, checked the closet one more time. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Jackie. Actually, I can't find it. Can you come help me look? I think it might have rolled into your closet. A minute later, she appeared in the doorway. Where do you think it fell? Somewhere in the closet. I opened it looking for extra towels and I think it slipped off when I bent down. Jackie walked into the closet and started searching the floor. I don't see anything. Keep looking, I said. It's a tiny silver hoop. Could be in the corner. Then I texted Troy. Come upstairs. Bedroom. Now. Jackie's in the shower. I can't wait anymore. His footsteps on the stairs were almost immediate. He appeared in the doorway breathing hard, and when he saw me standing there, his whole face lit up. Where is she? He whispered. I nodded toward the bathroom door. Shower. We have a few minutes. And he walked into the room and closed the door behind him. I cannot believe this is finally happening, he said, moving toward me. I've been thinking about you all day, all week. Ever since that night in the kitchen, I haven't been able to get you out of my head. Tell me, I said, stepping closer to him. Tell me what you've been thinking about. His hands found my waist again. That same grip, that same possessive hold. I've been thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't pushed me away, if you had just let me kiss you, let me show you what you were missing. What would have happened? I asked. I would have taken you right there in my wife's kitchen, he said, his voice thick with want. Jackie has no idea what I'm capable of. She's so boring in bed, so predictable. But you, Charlotte, I could tell from the moment I met you that you were different, that you needed someone who could actually handle you. I heard a soft sound from the closet, Jackie shifting her weight, listening. What else? I asked. Tell me everything. Troy pulled me closer. I wanted to push you up against that counter and show you what a real man feels like. And I wanted to hear you scream my name while my wife was in the next room blowing out her birthday candles. I wanted you to know that you were always the one I really wanted, not Jackie, you. And when I said no, when I pushed you away, his expression darkened. That made me furious. I spent weeks being nice to you, complimenting you, making you feel special, and you rejected me like I was nothing, like I was disgusting. So I decided if I couldn't have you, I would destroy you instead. How? I asked. Tell me how you did it. Troy laughed softly. It was easy. I made up the texts on a fake messaging app, made up the pictures too, spent a whole month telling Jackie what a desperate whore you are, watching your entire family turn against you one by one. He grinned. And the best part? You came crawling back anyway. You apologized. You begged for forgiveness. And now here you are in my bedroom about to give me exactly what I wanted in the first place. Say it again, I said. Say what you did. I want to hear it. I made it all up, Troy said proudly. Every single text, every single picture. You never sent me anything. I fabricated everything and watched your whole family hate you for it. Nobody believed you, Charlotte. Nobody will ever believe you. Because I'm the devoted husband, and you're just the crazy jealous sister who couldn't handle rejection. The closet door flew open. Jackie stood in the doorway staring at her husband with an expression I will never forget. All the color had drained from her face. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were filling with tears. Troy spun around, and when he saw his wife standing there, his face turned the color of paper. She had heard everything, every confession, every insult about how boring she was, every detail of how he had systematically destroyed me to cover up his own attempted betrayal. There was nowhere left for him to hide. Jackie, Troy said, stumbling backward away from me. Babe, this isn't what it looks like. I heard everything. Jackie's voice was shaking so badly she could barely get the words out. I heard every single word you just said. You made it all up? The texts? The pictures? You made my family hate Charlotte because she wouldn't sleep with you? Troy held up his hands. Okay, wait. Just listen to me. Charlotte set this up. She tricked me into coming up here. She made me say those things. None of it was real. I was just telling her what she wanted to hear. Jackie let out a sound that was half laugh and half scream. I just heard you say it with your own mouth. You said you fabricated the texts. You said you made up the pictures. You said nobody would ever believe her over you. How exactly is that Charlotte tricking you? I watched Troy's face cycle through expressions: panic, anger, desperation, calculation. He was searching for an angle, some way to spin this, but there was no spin left. His own words had condemned him. Jackie, baby, I love you, he said, and his voice cracked. Everything I did was to protect our family. Charlotte was a threat. She was trying to tear us apart. I was just defending what we have. By framing my sister? Jackie screamed. By making my daughter call her aunt a whore in front of our entire family? By making me believe my own blood tried to assault my husband? She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Do you have any idea what I said to her? What I did to her? Our mother won't even look at her anymore because of you. You destroyed her life, Troy. You destroyed my relationship with my sister. All because your ego couldn't handle her telling you no. I did it for us, Troy said desperately. Everything I did was for us. You did it because you're a coward, Jackie spat. You did it because the thought of a woman rejecting you was so unbearable that you had to turn yourself into the victim. And instead of dealing with that like a grown man, you decided to ruin ruin an innocent person's life. She walked past him and stood next to me. Her hand found mine and squeezed. "Get out," she said quietly. "Jackie, come on. Let's just talk about this. Let's go downstairs and work through this together. Get out of my house." Her voice was louder now, harder. "I don't want to look at you. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want you anywhere near me or my daughter ever again." Troy's desperation curdled into something uglier. "This is my house too. You can't just kick me out." Jackie pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She told them our address and said, "My husband is refusing to leave and I feel unsafe. He's also been stalking and harassing my sister and I have evidence." Troy's eyes went wide. "Jackie, hang up the phone right now. You're being hysterical." "Sir," Jackie said, her voice steady even as tears ran down her face. "If you're still here when they arrive, I'm going to tell them everything. How you harassed my sister. How you grabbed her hard enough to leave marks. How you fabricated evidence to destroy her reputation. How you just confessed to all of it thinking no one was listening. I have it recorded on my phone." She held up her phone and I saw the voice memo app running. She had been recording from the closet. The last of Troy's confidence crumbled. I watched it happen in real time. His shoulders sagged. His face went gray. He grabbed his keys off the dresser and looked at both of us with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't over," he said. "You're both going to regret this. I promise you that." He stormed out of the bedroom. A few seconds later, the front door slammed so hard the whole house shook. Then his car started and peeled out of the driveway so fast I heard tires squealing. Jackie stood there staring at the spot where her husband had been. Her whole body was trembling. "I'm so sorry that I believed him." I pulled her into my arms and held her while she sobbed. "You didn't know. He manipulated you." She continued to apologize while I held her for a long time, feeling years of sisterhood mending.